So if you continue a little bit, I really give a quick overview about design thinking, that you could get a good understanding, and then of course we're moving into ecosystems design. And for the design thinking part, I'm always comparing like two worlds. There's like the exploit world, like the corporate world, usually all of us in, right? You're coming in the morning at 8 to work, you work until 5 o'clock, you know exactly what is happening, you know in your task, you know in the process, you know in your function, you know exactly everything, right? This is basically the world most of us are operating on a daily basis. And we call it the exploit world. And basically, it's compared to like a super highway. You know, you can predict, you know what's happening. You can, of course, implement and improve a little bit your processes. But at the end of the day, there's no innovation happening. To go into the innovation part, you really have to go to the left and to the right side of the superhighway. And usually it's more like this jungle atmosphere, right? So this is something, you know, you have to find your own way. You have to listening. You have to do experiments. You have to figure out how to survive. You have limited resources. And this is something I'm operating for the last 20 days on a daily basis. It's this kind of jungle environment without air conditioning, without all these kind of benefits you have in this corporate world, because real innovation really happening off these superhighways to the left and to the right. So you have to go into kind of this jungle atmosphere to find out, you know, what does the customer need, what has been changing, how to solve the problem, and everything you can imagine around this jungle is basically something you usually see in the design thinking mindset. So basically, a superhighway corporate world, exploit, and on the other hand, we have like the jungle with explore and finding out about how to get a big problem solved. So these are the two worlds. And of course, the behavior in these two worlds are totally different. When you look more to the left side, of course, you have to break the rules. You have to dream about things. You have to open the door. You have to build trust with people. You have to be looking for fairness somehow to get something done. Of course, it's all about collaboration. And of course, it's all about doing mistakes, having a failure, and of course, learning out of failing, and then of course doing things again because nothing is there. On the other hand, you have like the world, you know, for many kind of years working in your operations. Of course, you have to be outstanding the job, loyal to your team. You have to have a competitive advantage, and at the end of the day, striving for perfection and returning flavors. So this is kind of the world we usually in. And these tools can then be described, of course, the rules of the jungle and the rules of the highway, or we just say on the left side, it's all about explore, and the right side is all about exploit. And this is kind of the two things we see basically in the corporate world. When you put it on like a diagram, you know, we see also how the cost is going down from the initial phase of exploring, later on to scaling something. On the other hand, at the beginning, when you start the process, like the design thinking process, there are no benefits for the customers. You're going there just asking a lot of questions, you're observing, but you're building a prototype, and step by step as the MVP, and later the ecosystem, you create something and you have more benefits and the cost is going down. And finally, you have something in the market, you know, you can have a good margin on, or you have like the benefits for the customer, depending a little bit on the sector you're in. But at the end of the day, we're trying to shift like from the left side to the right side. And of course, we have to learn a little bit the behavior of the explore part, because usually we're really good in exploit, but we have been not so good with the explore part, because usually our company setting is kind of optimized to get more of the same. And this usually means exploit and not explore. So when we look into the mindset, what is needed, and I really like this illustration because it's quite important to understand what is the design thinking mindset. And here it's referring to the beginner's mind. And you see this little kid like 4 years old, and I can tell you from own experience, a 4-year-old kid is doing only one thing, asking a lot of WH questions. Why, when, where, and constantly doing the same thing. So kids trying to explore at the same time they're building prototypes, right? They're trying to flip off from your table all the dishes and the plate and everything. And basically, as parents, they'll be totally disappointed that our kid is not behaving. But at the end of the day, they do exactly what we should do on a daily basis. They explore and they like to see if this fork or this knife is flying or not. You know, and they do not only one experiment, they do 100 experiments. And if they're growing up and they're figuring it out, the fork is not a good thing to throw on the floor, it's not flying, they have learned about our environments. They have learned about the behavior of the object. They know how the space is engaging with the entire environment and with people, and they're learning out of this process. Our problem as adults, growing up in this kind of world with everything is in functions and everything is so organized, we are not able anymore to explore things. And that's the reason why we need the design thinking mindset. It gives us the mindsets, the structure, and the ideas behind to explore again. And you behave like someone 3-4 years old, to get to the basics, to understand what's the problem to solve, and not jumping into predefined solutions. Because all of us are really good. We have been so much experience and gaining experience over the last 5, 10, 50, 30 years. I don't know how long you have been working in a specific topic on a specific industry, but we're trying to jump into solution because we think we did already 5 or 10 years ago, and we can apply the same solution to something we see now in the market, any kind of problem to solve. But it's wrong, right? We always have to go back and see, what is kind of the problem at the moment, what is the customer behavior, how has the world changed, and then later on go to the double diamond, the design thinking process of creating value for our customers. So what has changed over the last decade from the left side, like the traditional innovation funnels, with like stage gates and bringing ideas, to something you bring first a problem, right? It's people coming to me and saying, Michael, we have like a nice idea, like to implement in the market. Always say, I don't like ideas, don't come with any idea. What is the problem to solve? This is always the question. Where's the problem? What is the problem to solve? And then, of course, we apply our observation, we apply methods to understand, and then, of course, we build over time, prototype, testing these things with the customer and use, and finally, you have a better product. So if you're still in the stage gate process, bringing ideas to the table, it's probably more than 10 years already outdated. Shift into something totally different, really focusing on the problem to solve, apply the design thinking mindset in the start. I know it's sometimes confusing because you don't know where to start, but you have to start, as I mentioned right in the beginning with my slide, and then basically over time, you get more clarity in finding a good solution for what you like to aim it for. This is basically the process, right? Chaotic in the beginning, you ideate, you prototype, you have the clarity in the end. And that's quite important that you understand, that it's not a linear process of starting and then doing like 3 steps and then it's done. It's really kind of an iterative way with a lot of point of views, with a lot of kind of things you have to combine, you have to test, and finally you get better outcomes for your customers, whatever services or products. So you probably will say, well, I'm not a designer, so why should I start thinking like one? This was the answer. And we go already to the next part. It's all about the design thinking double diamond. And the design thinking double diamond has 2 parts. And as I mentioned before, we always start to understand the problem first. So the left side, it's an important part about solving the problem. And then later on, you really find a solution with your prototypes and tests to get into something is really kind of you see in the market. But at the end of the day, this kind of double diamond is also a little bit misleading. And I usually put it in a totally different kind of perspective and say, look, it's actually spread out. And the most of the time I spend in my projects is solving the right problem. So where's the problem to solve? That's the most important part. And then, of course, collecting insights and ideation. These things nowadays, you can also use a lot of AI tools and be data-driven. And then again, the prototyping, it's really important, right? So prototyping and testing and getting feedback, that's also quite important. And between for all these things, collecting insights and everything, it's important because you need them. At the same time, technology can help you for these things. More on the left side, building up empathy, understanding the problem, technology can't help you because we're not ready with AI. And if you're asking AI about a persona and consumer behavior, it's always oriented to the past, right? Because the language model is building on knowledge from like 5, 10, 20 years ago and don't have like the current situation. That's the reason why we really still have to do the manual process, understanding the problem on the left side, building up empathy. And then, of course, we can have like AI data tools for insights collection, ideation sometimes, but still our brain is much better than any AI. And then, of course, the prototyping part is quite important to build something, get feedback from the customer before you implement something. So, big question, is this a real problem to solve? Probably invented by men? Of course not, right? That's happening basically if you don't go to the entire process. Some men were sitting together and saying, oh my goodness, I have a great idea. We're going to sell it to billions of women worldwide. But at the end of the day, it's there's no market, right? No one needs this kind of device and actually doesn't work. But this is usually what's happening. We have these great ideas, we put something together, we even go into production, and then we realize a totally failure in the market. And that's the reason why we need design thinking, that we're not building products like this, because this will be never successful. So, but the problem is like always the starting point. You go basically into any kind of situation, and there's a lady here sitting, standing in front of the shelf, trying to pick something, and our human brain is saying, well, she needs something to step on to get higher, and go to the upper shelf. But this is basically assumption, and 80% of our assumptions are wrong. So don't jump into any kind of solution doing these things, right? If you are going here and you're observing these things and you're jumping into the ladder kind of situation, this is basically exploit mindset. This is not design thinking mindset. It's not about exploring. If you like to explore, you have to go to this lady, you have to speak to her, you have to find out what she likes to do. And maybe she likes to get access to something, maybe she likes to grab something, maybe she likes to have a better price, better quality, more of something. We don't know. And this is something we have to figure out. Building up empathy with the customer and see, what is kind of the behavior, what is the problem she's facing, what she likes to do. Otherwise, if you just bring her the letter, she will be not successful, not happy with my solution. So that's the reason why we need first the engagement part and seeing, what is kind of the deeper need to solve. And out of the deeper needs, of course, we can come up with solutions, talk again to the user, and having something much better in the end, as we have been seeing before. So the good news is the design thinking mindset can be trained, and you can learn about these things. Just put you like 5 bullet points, and this is quite important. So first of all, it's hunting. We're hunting always for the next market opportunity and not wandering around, because you need a purpose, right? You have to go out and say, look, we have identified a problem, we like to solve this problem, and you have to have this focus. Then, of course, always do it in a team setting. Never go alone, and find like the solution. Always have a team, with different thinking preferences. We're also referring back to the T-shape, having different T-shape participants working in a team and solving the problem, because you need different point of views to get something done. If you're just working with your own kind of assumptions and your own testing, then basically this is not going to operate. So the idea of having kind of a team, with different disciplines connected is quite important to be successful in design thinking. Then, of course, never give up too early, right? If you do iterations and you fail, of course, you get negative feedback for your prototype. Every feedback is a gift, and don't give up, right? This is kind of what we need. That's kind of the oil to fuel the engine. We need the feedback, and we have to fail. And out of failing, we go to the next iteration, make it better. And after a lot of iterations, usually coming up with a better product or service. Then, of course, it's a different behavior between transport and hunting. You see already, if I'm going out looking for something, I like to get like the best solution for my potential customer, or I'm bringing back the insights, and bringing back the insights is actually wrong in this illustration. It's also sometimes, a little bit tricky to bring things back. But at the end of the day, it's kind of the behavior. And this is important, if we're out hunting or we're bringing back insights, point of views, feedback from the customer, and then, of course, we incorporate these things to go to the next level. And finally, quite important, whenever you build any prototype, bring it home. Implementation is key for innovation, because all of us have a lot of ideas and we can do a lot of PowerPoint presentations. But at the end of the day, the key also for design thinking is that you implement and you bring it to the market, right? And you convince your stakeholders, and then basically you see the success in the market. And that's quite important, that we actually see these things also in the design thinking part and later on of the process of getting something out. So now business ecosystem design, after understanding the basics of design thinking, what is now this whole business ecosystems? So first of all, I think it's quite important to see it's like one discipline of design thinking, because we can use design thinking a little bit for our own use for the toolbox, having a couple of tools of design thinking and doing things. We can have also the design thinking mindset, to have a different way of thinking about problems. We, of course, have a way to look into how we collaborate with our teams. But the last one is quite important. We can also use it for business growth. Right? And business growth is related now to the ecosystem design space, that we say ecosystems are usually much more successful, much better to scale than any kind of linear business. And that's the reason why we really have to look into like design thinking for business growth as our own discipline within design thinking we can apply to have something we can scale on a later scale. So when we go now into the first step, like digital transformation, this chart is actually quite old, something I've been producing 15 years ago. But we're moving from the traditional company into the digital company. And I'm saying 15 years ago because a lot of companies started the digital transformation 15 years ago. And this time I also was referring back to the digital transformation. We know nowadays there's no digital transformation. It's not happening. There's no digital transformation. And I see still kind of a lot of broadcasts and like books writing about the digital transformation. This is not a process will start and end. Digital will evolve. It's more like a tsunami. The waves are getting bigger, right? So digital is not the transformation. We have a business transformation. We have a culture transformation. And the digital part will just change in an exponential way. So what we see right now, the last 2 years with artificial intelligence, what we have seen the last 15 to 20 years with cloud computing, what we see in the future now about quantum computing, about artificial general intelligence and super intelligence, whatever you like to look into, this will go big and will be not a transformation. This will be more like an ongoing process in like really a lot of higher speeds than we ever have seen before. So, but the good thing is 15 years ago, I was referring back what we need. And you see here on the right side, a couple of things, making use of network effects, first of all. And this is something we know already for over 20 years from the platform economy. And then, of course, the design of ecosystems and value streams. And it doesn't matter what was coming next, Web3, any kind of change in customer behavior, we will be much, much quicker with the time to market if you apply business ecosystem design instead of our linear thinking. That's the reason why you have to learn about those capabilities and see how ecosystem design can be applied to your specific value proposition.